Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 28 of Horsin Around right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz, with a first-time guest from Equine Edge and host of Stretch Run, Mr. Chris Walsh, and my good friend and co-host of Bet and Boozin', Patrick Kunzel, right down below. Thanks for joining the show, everyone. Tonight, I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Hit the notification bell at the top right so you know when new content will arise, and smash that like button. We'd greatly appreciate it. By the way, we are only 20. I just looked, gentlemen. 20 subscribers away from 4,000. We need 4K, everyone. What are we waiting for? Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on X right there at HKravitz. You see Chris's X handle there next to his name tag, and Patrick's X handles next to his name tag as well. And scrolling at the bottom of the screen is my email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Gentlemen, before we get into a few other quick administrative items, how are we doing this evening?
I can't complain.
All right. No, you definitely can't complain, Patrick. We'll talk about why. Chris, a real pleasure to have you on the show. I see a wonderful, nice book there over your right shoulder as well. Why don't you just very briefly introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do with Equine Edge?
Hey, Howard, I'm super happy to be here with the HHH Racing Podcast. I have followed you for a number of years, and we have some mutual acquaintances, so it felt only natural to kind of reach out to you guys and try and put something together. So I've been following the system for 4 years now. Met a lot of the old timers, hooked up with Oldie and Justin and Scotty, of course. And then, we kind of got into the Stretch Run show. We've been doing this, the three of us, for about a year. It'll be a year in August, I believe. But it's just fun to try and, educate people and get people in a happy place to where we can all cheer each other on and build a community where, we encourage each other. We talk about good things and bad things, ways to wager, ways to handicap, and everything else. So, and I just feel like as somebody who used the forum for, decades, that the Equine Edge product gives me a little bit quicker way to get to things that I would get to with the forum. And it's just easier to use. And there are a lot of tools in there that make sense. It's you still have to make the decision, right? With any product, anything you use, you still have to make the decision.
For sure, and we'll talk a little bit later about a new relationship with you guys and what the plan is.
And one other thing, Howard, it's one word. It's Equine Edge. You got two E's.
Equine Edge. I'm sorry, Equine. Okay, Equine Edge.
You're right. I know you're a math teacher, not an English teacher.
Yeah, well, I do have a journalism major, so I background, so I shouldn't. Equine Edge. Okay, got it.
Well, if I did that in binary, you would have known what to do.
Yeah, for sure. Very quickly, as both you guys know, we have fantastic power picks, and this is a big week, Patrick, because Del Mar opens this Saturday. It's a great meet. I love Del Mar as well as Saratoga, and we have special Del Mar only power picks. And if everyone just give me 1 second to talk about those very briefly and where to find them. If you just go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, you click on Power Picks tip sheet, and there's a drop down. You can get our standard Power Picks, which are only Saturdays. Del Mar Power Picks, just to let everyone know, you can still purchase those on a weekend by weekend basis. So it's depending if you are a current subscriber or not, you are available to get those on a weekend by weekend basis at this point. But you can also go to Del Mar Power Picks only, and you can find out all of our information there, where you can either sign up for the full meet, which is what we recommend, which is Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, or you can choose a particular weekend that you might want to do as well. So we highly recommend people look into our Power Picks tip sheet. It's going to be fantastic. People should really look into that. We've had an excellent first weekend as well. Guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump in to 2 races at Saratoga from Saturday. We're going to talk about the Diana. We're going to talk about the Sanford pretty quickly. And then we're going to have a little discussion about different types of betting across the board, from sports betting to horse racing to poker, because I think they all have very different aspects that are interesting to talk about. And we all have experience in all those genres. One of my favorite words, Chris, genre. Good word. Should be used more often. Spelled with a G, by the way, if people don't know. As I digress. Anyway, we'll talk about all of them. Guys, let's get into the Diana first. And Patrick, before I bring up the results of the Diana and a few other things, why don't you just first tell everyone one of the reasons why you're on the show tonight? Because you had quite the weekend, sir, and you were in a very special place.
Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of starts. Just being able to go up to Saratoga, so often, it being, less than 2.5 hours from my house. Just being able to go up there to that beautiful track that we all know, and see great racing is one thing. But then, having big weekends like I had, are just, even better. And that's what makes it so much more fun. And being up there with a couple buddies of mine that I grew up with, and knowing that I'm going in a week and a half with, a big group of guys that I'm now very close with. I just think, it's great.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun betting weekend. And my opinions were right. And that happens every so often. And, it's been great.
Yeah, you had a hell of a weekend. We'll get into that in a minute. And your family is a place on what, Lake Saratoga, or about a half an hour away? Also,
Yeah,
right?
Lake George. Yeah, Lake George, which is about 30 minutes north of
right.
Saratoga.
Matt Miller said we're going to have a killer time. I'm sure that is going to happen. Let's get into the Diana, guys. I know, Chris, you want to mention something about Equine Edge's analytics in this race, but let's just look at the results here first, Chris. Let me go ahead and bring that on right now for everyone. Of course, White Beam takes the Diana for the second year in a row, by the way. This horse has won almost $1 million now. 1160 is an absolute steal. If you like that horse, I liked her. I liked others more. This was a B for me, so it was more of a secondary pick. But White Beam, you can see, paid 1160, and then Moira, who I thought, watching the replay again, guys, to be very honest, I thought Moira might have actually run the best race of all of them. We'll talk about that in a minute. Gia Romanica, another Chad Brown, who seems to be rounding back in to form third, and Didia, who was the favorite in fourth. Patrick, as you were watching this race, on the first turn there, as we all know well, please tell me your thoughts right into the race, because I thought Evie Jets was going to go. Let me put you guys back on screen. And we talked about this, Chris. I was on the show with you guys Saturday. I love Dylan Davis, Patrick. I just don't understand the logic with the ride. Maybe he was just ridden to instructions, but I thought the only chance that Evie Jets had to even be in the money was to be sent, Patrick. And as we watch, Evie Jets was the 9, broke well, just let White Beam go to the lead, and just, basically she walked the dog.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I saw the exact same thing you did. Like you said, being along that first turn right there, you could kind of see what the jockeys were thinking and things like that. And you look at the 9 in Evie Jets. I mean, Dylan had no inclination there to send at all. He was satisfied with sitting that stalking trip, outside of Didia, and Flavian just, took White Beam and, put that hold on the horse and just let that horse cut the fractions at a reasonable pace. And I mean, to be quite honest, they round this first turn, it was pretty much all but over, especially when you look at the quarter mile time.
Yeah, it was 20. Well, they even slowed it down more, Chris. I think they were 25 and change to the half. And, something, I've followed White Beam quite a bit. Chris, White Beam was actually a big play for me in a Preakness contest last year when I singled her. I mean, she was 4-5, wasn't anything special. But this horse used to be very headstrong, Chris, and a little bit rank. And Chad has really taught her to settle down as she's gotten older. Didia, sitting up absolutely perfect trip, had zero excuse in this race, Chris.
So I was going to come on and talk tonight because I really didn't. When this race came around, I'm a Didia fan. I had a nice win bet on her last time and various other bets. But I wanted her to win here. Oldie and I were wearing our Resolute Racing hats that day. And we liked her to win. I wanted her to win. But pari-mutually, I couldn't get anywhere here. And I really liked the winner in the next, which we'll talk about in a minute. Mm-hmm. And I tried doing Dutch doubles on a calculator, and I just wasn't getting there. So I passed on this race. But I was chatting with a mutual friend of ours about this, and what I wanted to talk about. And I was so sour on the Chad Brown's got half the field, and he's in the paddock. He looks like Phil Jackson with his starting five with 2 minutes to go in the game, and they're coming up with a game plan. And we already knew that White Beam was going to be on the lead, right? We knew that on Thursday or Friday, easy. I think he was quoted as saying that. But Howard, what is the difference from this race this year to the race last year? This is something that I missed, and until our mutual friend was like, hey, go watch the replay of last year. And I went and watched it, and it was the same race as this year, except that the speed horse got caught. And if you share my screen, what's the difference, Howard? Last year is on the left, this year is on the right.
Well, the main difference is a much bigger field this year.
Unless
there's something else I'm missing.
You haven't spotted yet. We all missed it.
I'm not. What number was White Beam in the last year?
It doesn't matter the number, Howard. The picture on the left is last year.
Okay.
That horse is that race is on the outer turf.
I see.
This race is on the inner turf.
Okay.
You're getting a much bigger run up to the first turn as a speed horse, and the inside, being firm, which it was that day, is much more speed favoring than it is on the outer. So if you look at the way the two races were run, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot to go look at last year, but White Beam sat off in Italian last year and then caught that race. This year, the one wins. I'm convinced of that. And if that was something that I would have put together, right, and looked at the at where the race was being run, that would have been something I might have been able to capitalize on and come to an opinion on a horse to use there, or at least narrow down who I thought could actually close into that.
Definitely a fair point. I can't argue it. And Patrick, you and I were involved in. Well, you and I have been betting a lot horizontally in 2024. A little bit of a slump last 6 weeks. This our pick five that we scored obviously on Saturday has put us way over the top in the black, which is a good thing. What you may not know, well, I know you know, Patrick, or people at home don't know, we were happy to cash for 5K. Don't get me wrong. But if we had White Beams in A, we would have hit it twice. And I'm a little upset about the fact that I misread the Chili Flag versus White Beam situation. I just, I got sucked in the Chili Flag, and I just thought there'd be more speed. But we were happy to get White Beam home.
Oh, for sure. And I do find it interesting, Chris, because I didn't notice that, but now that I remember, they put that last year's Diana, on the, I guess that's the Mellon turf course,
Right.
because of the weather that came in, I guess the night before. There was really soft ground that day, so
yeah.
That is interesting. And that's if we all saw that and realized that, I'm sure we could have taken that into consideration. But yeah, it's funny to see Chad in the paddock too. Holding court with all his jockeys and stuff like that. Owners stay away, and he kind of just gives those instructions, and they follow his lead. And for the pick five, if I can only imagine if we had White Beam as an A.
No, that'd be nice. I do want to push back at one little thing, Chris. That's an excellent observation, and it's an excellent point, and I don't have any argument against it. I still say if every jet sent like she should have, White Beam probably doesn't win. So I don't care what turf course they're on. Yes, it might be easier to wire the field on the inner, but I think the fact that every Jets wasn't sent was the bigger reason, in my personal opinion. But that we can argue that.
Yeah, but if you show that that replay again into the first turn, you'll see when the horse got out. I mean, he would have had to go full on quarter horse to get the lead, and if he does that, he will likely cook himself and the winner in the process and open it up to closers. But when you're dealing with really tight inner turf turns, and you'll see this at Pimlico as well, it is more difficult to close on those when you're going around those turns.
No doubt.
And when you watch White Beam just continue to squirt away on the backstretch and get into the far turn, it was going to make it way more difficult. But I know there were plenty of people that said, why didn't Abby just, go to the lead? But when you watch the race develop, he would have had a quarter horse out there. And I mean, for the that's just not a good move. And White Beam either would have packed it in and given it up to one of the other 4 Chads.
I hear you, but every Jets doesn't pass horses usually. So, but anyway, we understand the point. The other horse I want to talk about, Patrick, and I've liked this horse since Derby Day. I think there's a graded stakes win for Coppice in this country. Now, I watched the head on. I don't know if you guys have seen the head on. I just want to show you the stretch run because Coppice was inside of Moira, who I thought ran huge, by the way. And Coppice never really could get through. I want to show what I'm talking about because I think it's worth mentioning. And Chris, and Patrick knows this, obviously, that I'm a very visual handicapper. And I watch these replays with, like a fine tooth comb. I just want everyone to watch really care. I don't know if you can see on the screen. Let me freeze it right here. Coppice is going to be, let me go a little more forward here. Okay. Didia is right here, and Coppice is going to be on the inside of her. You'll see it better in just a second. Oh, right here. So here's Coppice in the Juddmonte. Here's Didia, and Coppice never could really. I mean, the hole was there, but you see how Didia is like leaning on here, guys? You see that? And Coppice never really could get comfortably through there. You see right there, Didia kept, keeping the hole closed. There's nothing wrong with that. It's race riding. But you see, Frankie can never really get through with Coppice, even there. Great riding with the Jaka and Didia. I just think that mattered a little bit, guys. And when it comes down to inches for second and third and whatever, just something to keep in mind. Coppice has not been in the clear her last 2 runs. She's been in between horses and stuck, and she's not a big filly either, Patrick. And you can see on that replay, Didia is, several feet taller. So I just wanted to, I don't know if you guys agree with any of that or not, but I think it mattered a little bit for Coppice.
Yeah, I've always tried to make an excuse for Coppice as well. I feel like there are excuses in there. It's just one of those, you hear Chad talk about the horse, says the horse has a quick turn of foot. When you hear Chad say that, you start liking what you're seeing and things like that. But it's getting tough to keep backing the horse in this, especially after, that spot. And I think they're going to have to reconsider some things with Coppice.
Okay, I think she's still a graded animal. I'm not saying she's going to win the Breeders' Cup, mile or anything. I just, in the right spot, in the right situation, Chris, I think she's playable like 5-6 to 1 to win a big race this year. We'll see. Maybe I'm just being stubborn with her. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's time, like Dewey's saying, is time to replace Dettori on it. When I heard Frank say that he had her on a stranglehold, I'm like, that's usually not good. They're trying to extend energy. You're trying to make them not do that. That usually leads to a bad combination, or at least it does on Saturday mornings when I watch the White Beretta or Gray Horse on the turf course.
Okay.
So maybe there, and maybe the horse is what it is, and needs to find better spots to go into.
Dewey Fan agrees with you.
Yeah, and I was going off of that because that's just kind of what we did a show on Saturday. We were talking about that, and we were like, not really, too excited. I mean, Flavian Gray gave the winner a great ride with a great sense of timing and knowing when to do what he needed to do. He is the best French-born American turf jockey probably riding these days in the United States. But, like I said, I was such a mind mess with that one that old days I would have spent stupid money on it. Older days, smarter, just stick to what works and focus on the next race and go from there.
Was there something with Equine Edge you said you wanted to show regarding this race, or was it just that?
I can show it. I mean, the thing that I would highlight the most, if you want to throw it up there real quick, I'll be brief. This is how, we had it 4-3-2. And, these are not first and second and third. These are both the first pick and the second pick, which is for first. Did have it, White Beam wasn't anywhere near. It did not like the breeding on White Beam, which doesn't surprise me when you've got a horse that is coming from overseas. Sometimes these races here don't really work out with the algorithms in the way that that particular metric reads it. But The thing that was most is this. I mean, when you have win percentages of 15 to 12%, it's taking up half the field. It's telling you that, these are your likely winners here, and then these are your likely runners up. And I think it kind of figured that out somewhat. Couple of horses to watch here, Mission of Joy. I don't like the fact that the win percentage is below the win percentage of this algorithm. The ROI is minus 11%. Those are worrisome. Same thing with Moira, and Moira gets there for second. What did that exact end up paying? 42 to 1, which is kind of very generous there for sure. But yeah. This was one where it made it harder for me than when we get to the next race. So when you want to go there, let me know.
Yeah, let's do it right now. The next race was really good, Patrick, for you and I, because Moplex was our lone A. And Chris, I talked to this on your show. I completely did a 180 once the big scratch with the rail horse happened. And I've said this ad nauseum on our shows. Patrick knows this. And it's something that, frankly, has been very good for me and other handicappers. In small fields, you want to be on the outside. The rail is just really tricky. We saw it last week, Patrick, with I'm drawing a blank. Or was it? Yeah, it was last week. With the sprinter. I'm drawing a blank on the name. The sprinter who was on the 5-horse in the outside in the 5-horse field, who won. And Moplex was on the outside here and gets the job done, which I thought was just a brilliant ride here by IRAD, Patrick. And what I have said on this show, when I was on with Equine Edge, is that IRAD can simply break and look to his left. And if you watch really carefully, that's exactly what happened. Now, you got to get a good break from the outside, but watch his head. Watch IRAD. Right there. Yep. Did you see that? I don't know if anyone would see that. Watch really. I'll show it one more time. I mean, he broke great. I'll see if I can freeze it when he did. It's right past the tree, right after the tree. Right there. You see that? He looked to his left. And look, he's no dummy. The 3 didn't break. Baby Dukes, I know, was a horse that, that Equine Edge guys liked a little bit. Right here, I thought Moplex could have been, even money. I mean, she still had to get the job done, he did get the job done. But, once you get this kind of lead, Patrick, it's a huge advantage in this type of race.
Yeah, for sure. And, someone that, looks at, how quick the pace is and things like that. And, kind of being newer to that and seeing fast fractions or faster fractions, I get kind of nervous with that stuff, but, learning, whether it's from you or hearing it from others on the show, you get the lead like that with a horse that's confident and seems to be pretty strong like this horse was and was bet really well. I was very confident, and this horse just showed a ton of stamina in the stretch to just put these horses away, especially with 3 Echoes coming hard late.
And Studley Do Right, once he switched leads, Chris, you see he's on the wrong lead, the 6th, and he was really on the wrong lead for much of the stretch. Right there, he switched back, and then he started kicking in, but it was just too late. He's a nice horse. He was coming there. I mean, if it's 6.5, he probably wins. Studley Do Right, Chris. You see the gallop out; he's way past already.
Oh yeah. This was one that on our Friday night coaching class, which you can sign up for on equinedge.com. We do this on Zoom, less than 20 people or less. We had Brad Anderson on, who popped on Friday night, and we talked about Studley Do Right in terms of, could be there in the money and whatnot, and ended up getting there. For me, this was the one after the scratch that became obvious, and it was like, well, what prices can I get? What can I do into this race with a double, out of this race with a double, and things like that. And I looked at the doubles, and it was clear this horse was going to be the favorite. And then I was just hoping to get 2 to 1 or 9 to 5 even, which is what it eventually went off at. So if you'll throw the screen up, Howard, I'll kind of show you how we all kind of got here off after the scratches. All right, so in this race, so let me get over to my dashboard. There we go. You can see the horse with 37% on the win percentage. The morning line was 6 to 1. E had the morning line at 3 to 1. That changed kind of drastically once we had the scratch of the 1. Ended up going off at 9 to 5 versus the previous race. We're at 37% here. And when we look at what the badge was, still 26, but the ROI shortened up to -3%. And when you kind of took a deep dive here and looked at the race before, you felt like you were going to kind of get the same thing. And I next went to the race simulator, and this is a nice little feature here that will show you how it sees the race playing out. And I can change this by the different metrics or where they're at, but if I focus on the pace here, it didn't have the horse's lone speed with the metrics here, but you could see it with speed, and just continuing to go here with figuring that 3 echoes would be close. And then you can see with the red numbers, the red arrows, they're going backwards, and it just had the horse going on. With IRAD there at 9 to 5, that was the one for me. I know a lot of people singled that and used that in some doubles and some big threes. And the crazy thing, Howard, if you could have landed on the race before, you're getting 770, which isn't bad there on that exacta, and the double paid almost 20 to 1 with a 9 to 2 over a sort of a lukewarm 9 to 5 choice.
Interesting. Yeah, the metrics is interesting, and we use a lot of formulator as well. But just seeing the horses move, Patrick, throughout the race is sort of a cool feature with Equine Edge.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And also, just to bring it up, I did see a lot of people using it at the track. I was walking along. I was by actually the paddock gazebo area, and there was a couple people that had Equine Edge on their computers, so that was cool to see.
There you go. Very cool.
And so, Howard, one more note on the race simulator, because I think a lot is made of about it. It's just one metric, but pop the screen back up. I'm just going to show you what it showed for the Diana. And one of the things that I've noticed in using it is that when you see a cluster like this at the wire, there's a lot of horses that can win. I mean, maybe you can throw the 9 out, maybe the 7 out. But the 9 for me would be an easy toss because of the red arrow just going backwards, and you'll see it as through it. But the 7 is slightly improving as well, but you got a lot of noses on the wire here. One of the angles that a lot of guys have been using, and gals, I shouldn't discount the gals, is when you see a horse on the race simulator win by 2+ over the next horse, that can be very useful as a single in doubles and pick threes. If you can find something going into it that works, or even if you like the favorite, maybe you get 3 to 2 over, over 7 to 2, and it pays 9 to 1, right? It's a math problem. You understand that?
I do. I understand math very well. Before we talk to Patrick about sort of his journey through his sports, or not sports betting, but his horse racing gambling, which culminated, Chris, in his personal best weekend he's ever had this past weekend, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Patrick on the show. Can you just take 1 minute to briefly tell our viewers and listeners the tentative or idea plan for our collaboration between Equine Edge and ourselves? You can just mention Stretch Run, which is a live show. We're hoping to use Robert's communication and actually have live simulcast feeds on this particular channel as well in the near future.
Yeah, we've talked about this, and between Oldie, Justin, and I, and Scotty, and you, and it just feels like a natural thing to do things to, partner with each other and produce the content that people seem to want, and not be, pushing one thing or the other on folks. They're either going to use it or they're not. I mean, your power picks are great. It's something that people can subscribe to that supports the channel. Same thing with us with subscriptions and whatnot. But mainly just producing good content and trying to drive people to value, and not being something to where we're just going to throw money against the wall and hope for the best, or go all the time. So and I think with the product that we've been successful with a lot of our friends that are common with each other, is that instead of showing DRF, we can get you converted over to the dark side and working with Equine Edge and kind of turn there.
Definitely not the dark side. Yeah, we wouldn't be partnering with you if we, I know what you mean. You're being a little cheeky, but definitely a combination of the two would strengthen. I think everyone, and vice versa, as well. Patrick, let's talk to you for a minute, because look, people have told me a few times, don't put your tickets on X, it's bragging, whatever. If we're not going to toot our own horn, our own show, who's going to do it for us? And Chris, just had a lucky day with you on Saturday, and we threw some winners out there to people. But Patrick, let's talk about you for a second. You're a guy who before COVID wasn't even really a horse player at all, and you were not, and you found this show, and you've become an excellent handicapper, and your journey is pretty cool. Why don't you just give everyone like a quick minute on your journey into horse racing betting, what you focused on before you got into horse racing from a gambling perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, COVID was kind of the start of everything. I was kind of at that age where you'd like to say you gambled a little bit, but you didn't want to make that public because, people would think, it's not really safe and smart, or, things like that. But, once COVID hit and, I could start to take the time to look at the races, whether that was look at the program and really not know much, or, listen to, different people talk about the races and things like that, I started to grasp it and understand different things. And now, as time come, and, with this podcast, I mean, everybody on the show, I can't thank enough you, just understanding different angles and things like that. And being able to watch replays and read races. It's really cool. And I think, being able to put that all together to now, where I'm at the age where I can kind of comprehend all that and play it to what I feel comfortable doing, and, kind of understanding, how much do I want to win? Like one person specific, and it's kind of random, and I know he's in the chat, Brad Anderson, he seems to always ask me, especially at the Breeders' Cup, is like, Patrick, if I gave you a certain amount, well, thank you. If I gave you a certain amount of money, and I told you had to get to this number, how would you do it? I've started to kind of understand that and play that into, the way I want to, whether I go up there with a certain amount of money and I'm like, well, if I can only do this much with that amount, how much, how could I do it? And that's kind of what I started to do. And especially this weekend, that's what I did. I played a lot of doubles and pick threes and was looking at different payouts. I mean, Chris hit it with the White Beam and Moplex. I mean, I had that double too. I had a certain amount in my head that I wanted to get to, and that's kind of what I did. And I felt kind of like comfortable doing it. Like there was a time early on where I was playing and kind of just throwing numbers out, betting on a horse and being like, well, why did I bet that much money? That was kind of stupid. And now I understand, if my opinion's there, bet it. If it's not, kind of soften up a little bit. And I think that's kind of where I've learned this from everybody that, I've kind of met and dealt with, which has been great.
Yeah, emphasis on the dealing, on the dealt with part. Patrick is a real modest guy. Patrick's a modest guy. Chris, he also hit the pick four yesterday, Sunday, the late pick four for what 9 something, right, Patrick? I mean, so
yeah, just under 9. Yep.
Yeah, when you told me that, I mean, I didn't hit it. I was really proud of you, man. I mean, when I hear that, Chris, when you help mentor these younger guys and they do well, it's like they're your sons, and you want to win for yourself, obviously. But I hear stories like that. Just it makes you really proud to know that you had a very small part in helping them find those edges and those right ticket constructions to get those kind of cashes. Because when you're in your 20s, I mean, man, $1,000 is good for anyone. But I mean, it is accentuated when you're younger and you just started working and you want to save money for, an apartment or a house eventually, whatever everyone's, got to pay college, bills or whatever the situation is. It definitely accelerates the value of the money when you're younger, Chris, in my opinion.
100% is the oldest guy on the screen.
Only by a little bit.
Yeah, I know, but still the oldest. Have Brad on because me and Brad makes him the oldest, which is even better. But Chuck's right. I mean, Brad has been a really good influence on me over the last 4 years. A lot of people in our WhatsApp chat. If you want to join that, find me on Twitter and I'll hook you up. But on just shortening down the opinions and not going nuts with the big caveman tickets and trying to just throw something against the wall to hit it. I mean, Howard, I know you hit the pick 5 this past weekend, Saturday, I believe, at Saratoga, and you're playing an ABC method, and the one ticket you had paid I paid a lot, but it was a $12 ticket. And then you get better because when you do a caveman ticket and you're taking 5 out of 9 horses, you're valuing them all the same, and they're not. And so that's the math problem that the multi-race thing solves. That, and it's good to see that you got there, Patrick, in terms of having that opinion. I didn't have that opinion in the Diana. I got to 0 minutes to post where they're walking up to the gate. I've got 6 different betting screens up with a myriad of different bets, wondering, am I going to click the button? And the answer was no. Now, years ago, I'd have just done that inefficiently and either won the minimum with the maximum amount of risk in case EV Jets does go and wire the field and I'm screwed. And I just focused on the simple low-hanging fruit of the win bet on the next race. And, the stretch run, we're evolving into that. We've had great doubles that Oldie gives out, doesn't play. I play them. They play 12-1. We root each other on and whatnot. But shortening up and being efficient is what I've learned from Brad, and now being introduced to Matt and hanging out with you and everything else. And that goes into our next segment with poker and sports betting for sure.
Yeah, I just want to mention on the bottom of the screen, Crypto Light. Patrick, I'm new also in terms of betting, so I feel you. Having passionate leaders to follow helps the newcomers. Equine platform is awesome, and the benefit that you have, Patrick, that I never had, I don't know about you, Chris, as we get into our last quick conversation. I never really had a mentor. I didn't have anyone in my family that was really a gambler, certainly not horse racing. I went to the OTB and, learned the hard way. I was doing dumbass across the board bets and boxing crap, and I had no idea what I was doing when I look back at it. And Pat, it's just, I'm not to ask you to kiss our ass, Patrick, by any means, but certainly I would recommend, I'm sure you feel the same, read books. It's work. You got to study it. As a coach, Chris and Patrick, I've coached for 25 years in different sports, mainly basketball and lacrosse. You got to be passionate about what you're doing. I always tell my players, go watch these games on TV, learn how these guys, play. You can't just go out to the playground and shoot the shit and hope you're going to get better. You got to study the game. You got to study this handicapping game, Patrick, if you really want to be successful.
100%. And that's kind of where I've kind of connected with, being a sports official in basketball and football. I kind of think that you could just show up to the game and officiate and be done. Yeah, some people do that, but I like to, rewatch the film of, how I did, how I could get better, ask people how, and I equate that to this. I think that we talk after races, we look at the PPs and, what we missed, watch the replay, things like that. But a lot of it's just kind of, opinions too. And, just having those strong opinions. And that's what I've taken from you, especially with the ABC grids and things like that. I would have never have thought of that. There's just no way I would have done that. I would have just played caveman tickets like Chris and would have hit all single. I would have done something, and it would have been kind of just stupid. And I'm at that point now where I feel comfortable placing bets and I have a great time doing it. And I think it's awesome that it's evolved into this.
Yeah, well, you've been tremendous, Patrick, and it's great. And that leads to Chris, my last conversation, guys, for about 10 minutes here, is look, let's let everyone know, Chris, you and I enjoy poker quite a bit. It's, I personally prefer horse, betting on horses, but I do play a lot of poker. Patrick, I know you like to sports bet on different sports. I think fair to say mainly what NFL would probably be fair to say, and Major League Baseball once in a while. I don't know how you feel, Chris. I want to ask you this question. Luck is a part of every aspect of gambling, right? I don't care what sport it is. You have to get lucky, but you have to put yourself in the right position to get lucky. There's a reason why you look at the top of the leaderboard, of almost every big poker tournament, other than the main event, which is a whole other situation. But in general, you look at the World Poker Tour, or you look at horse players on, and you look at the NHC, the BCBC. Should be a surprise. You see a lot of people's names over and over on the top of the leaderboard. So when people say, "Well, it's just luck," clearly there's a lot of skill involved. Clearly.
There is. I'm going to take 10 seconds to just tell you that back to the previous segment where Al Crypto Light here. Al's new to the game in our chat, really interactive, asking a lot of questions. He was on with you on a Friday night as well. One of the guys today had his best bet today at Ellis. I don't remember the horse's name. It was a 2-horse that paid $19.20 to win. Al took that info and made some bets and won some money and didn't go and do something, I'm going to single that horse to the pick 5 and try and win, right? Just did some simple bets and win. And those are things that we are trying to introduce new people to the game, young as Patrick and older as Al, on how to do this and have some fun doing it. So, David also talked about this on the show, David Harrison, 2022 NHG champ, is it there are entertainment bets and then there are bets where I have an opinion. And entertainment bets are fun. He did a couple of those, Howard, when you were on, bet on Barbara at 40-1 at Gulfstream, and Howard did some winners there. But back to luck. Yes, you have to put yourself in position to be lucky. I had a recent poker tournament down in Tampa, late stages of the game. I was 4th in chips. I got 2 guys that have short stacks. I got ace jack offsuit against what I didn't know at the time, pocket 7s and pocket 4s. I put them all in. I got a call, and there was nothing until a jack on the river. That's putting yourself into a place to get lucky. Sure. Because I've got them dominated. Yes, they got 2 pairs. Unlikely they're going to hit sets. There was no threat of straights or anything else. But even if I had lost that, I'd have still only lost 15% of the stack. So I could have fought another day.
A question I have for both you guys. I'm going to direct it to Patrick first. I'll talk about myself. When I play, I know you don't play a lot of poker, Patrick, but you'll understand the point. When I win or lose, whether it's horse racing or poker, I personally feel with horse racing, when I hit something big, that there's a little bit less luck involved and it was more skill based on what I'm reading in the form and ticket instruction. With poker, Chris, I still feel like, and maybe this is completely stinging thinking, like we have zero control over what cards come out. I know you got to put yourself in the right position, but I still feel like there's a little more luck involved in poker than there is in horse racing, just in my opinion. Patrick, do you feel that way with sports betting versus horse racing? Which gives you more satisfaction when you crush it, like a 4-game parlay when you win 1,000, or like this weekend when you hit a pick 5? Is there one sport or one betting avenue that you feel is more gratifying than the other?
Yeah. So to answer the first part, 3 or 4 years ago, I would tell you that it definitely felt better to hit, 2 or 3 leg parlay in sports. Now it's completely changed. I think my, betting on horse racing and, hitting a pick 3 or pick 4 for, decently, it feels so much better. And it kind of proves to me that, I can do it, and it's, my opinions matter there. With sports, I've started, I still continue to bet on it, but I've started to kind of back away from, constantly doing it. I kind of pick and choose my spots, whether that's, watching a team on a regular basis and kind of seeing the matchup and understanding it from that aspect of it.
Like the Atlanta Braves, perhaps?
Yeah, like that's kind of how that works. And specifically, even college football, you could watch teams on a daily basis. How, for example, their offense in college football seems to be at a level that's just never been seen. And you can kind of get an idea of how teams are going to play in those instances against defenses that might be weaker of just talent, pure talent in college football. And I think that's kind of how I base things off of, like the eye test kind of thing from previous weeks. Like I think you look at the NFL, betting at the beginning of the season, the NFL to me is just not really smart. I need to kind of see what teams are. As Bill Belichick would say, the season doesn't start until week 5. So I don't know, but that's kind of how I do my sports betting. I like to get a visualization of things.
Well, I mean, just for the simple fact, Chris, and I know you don't sports bet too much or you do in-game baseball, but with parlays, what Patrick's saying, I mean, horse racing, of course, there's 8, 10, 12 horses in a race. Sports, you're just betting one or the other to win, but it doesn't make it. You would think it'd be easier, but it's definitely not.
Yeah, and sports for me, my success, during this time of year is baseball in game, later innings, 4, 5, 6 inning. You got to go look at the lines. And I'm in Florida, so I'm limited to Hard Rock bets. So when those in-game odds change fast when things happen, and sometimes they're inefficient. And if you get an inefficient line, especially with a profit boost, like I've got 1 to 9 to 30%, or maybe I'll look when we're done and see if there's anything, then there are opportunities there. There are opportunities there. Oh, that's right, home run derby. I'm not doing that. But there are opportunities there where you can get some scores. The funniest thing I think I see on that is you can bet table tennis. And I was like, all right, I'm going to bet table tennis. I'm going to bet $5 on this guy. And you can watch it on the phone. And it's like, this is insane. I would much rather like literally play just slot machines than do that.
Yeah,
but it was much. But poker is a different story. 2 types of poker, tournament and cash, way different, much like horse racing. The only difference is you can't play a tournament and cash at the same time. Right. So
right.
That's kind of a disadvantage. It'd be interesting to see how that would work. But I played a long time, started in Commerce. Howard, you've been there, largest poker room in the world, back when they only had stud and then no limit, or limit and then no limit. Hit a jackpot there for $100,000. Killed my own jackpot for $100,000. Because I rivered something, I was trying to get somebody out, and I'm like, oh, if I had just bet the minimum, we would have had it. But it's a math game. To your point, for me, I feel like that it's only luck when I get beat by bad luck, like when I get 1 out or 2 out or 3 out.
Yeah.
If you put yourself in a position to continually deal with your opponents and not the cards, the cards at some point don't matter. Because you can, when you play against the same people in Tampa, much smaller subset of people to deal with than playing at Commerce, where you have a large variety. But if you play certain games at certain levels, it'll be the same folks all the time.
Just last question, and we'll end the show. Chris, what gives you more satisfaction, having a really great, let's go to tournaments, having a real good tournament in a poker situation, or hitting a really high quality pick 4, pick 5? Let's say they pay the same amount. What gives you more satisfaction? What do you think is more difficult to do, etc.?
Hitting a 10K first place in a tournament is way harder than hitting a 10K pick 5 or pick 4, because you're playing you against the masses, and your opinion can't necessarily get crushed by the 1 outers, or those are the rich strikes that beat you in the Derby and whatnot, and those are far fewer in between than getting beat by a 1 outer. I had that on Saturday night. I'm still bitter about it. Jack 10 against pocket 10s, big bets pre-flop. Flop comes Jack 7 deuce. I go all in and he calls, and the last 10 comes on the river. Those are brutal. Disgusting. And then I came home and played some Century Mile and got punched right in the throat with 11-1 winner and a really bad takedown. So go watch that replay.
Yeah, well, actually, Patrick and I had a nice little positive DQ. It never seems to happen that way, Patrick.
No.
The last race yesterday at Saratoga was real good for myself and Patrick. Guys, a lot of fun. Enjoyed the conversation. Chris, look forward to our continuing collaboration with Equine and all the guys there. And Patrick, just keep crushing it, man. And I know you well enough to know that you're not going to become complacent, or you certainly won't become arrogant, because of all the years I've known you've never been that. But just keep learning. There's a lot. I learn every day, Chris. I should have used white beam as an A. It was a mistake. I'll tell you what I learned, what reinforced me this week. I'll end with this with everyone. I've been doing this for 30 years, Patrick. When you look at the Timeform US, or you look at the pace, and there's 2 possible speeds, they usually don't hook up. When you get 3 or more speeds, look out. That's when things can collapse, because these guys look at the form. If you have only 2 speeds, they don't often hook up. One doesn't always break great. One guy decides to take back, right? So 3 or more speeds, it could collapse. With only 2, not necessarily. Just keep that in mind going forward. But guys, again, I appreciate the conversation. We got Del Mar Power Picks. Look into it, everyone. We'd greatly appreciate it on our website. Look into Equine Edge's stuff as well. For my new good friend and collaborator, Chris Walsh, and always good friend and co-host of Ben Boozin, Mr. Patrick Hunzel. This has been Howard Kravitz, episode 28, yes, of Horsin' Around. Wednesday night, Del Mar opening day preview with the Ben Boozin guys. Thursday night, the Haskell preview with Alexa Zapp. By the way, Chris is coming on our airwaves Thursday night. If you don't know Alexa, she's awesome.
We do. We've had her on before.
She's awesome. Check that out. Everyone have a fantastic night. We appreciate your viewership. Crush your bets wherever you play this week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.